Meeting is called to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular April meeting of the Community High School District 94 Board of Education. Thank you, Rich. Board agreements, please.
Board members will be judicious in their use of electronic communication with respect to district business and understand that most electronic communication is subject to the Freedom of Information Act and as such can be made public. In compliance with the Open Meetings Act, board members will not reply to any district email.
Thank you, Lynn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Miss Casey Mayer?
Here.
Ms. Doremus?
Present.
Ms. Munoz? Here. Mr. Nagel?
Present.
Mr. Sake?
Present.
Mr. Sunigo?
Here.
All right, we have a new business action item, the Brady Christopher Johnson citation. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the citation for Brady Christopher Johnson as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion for the citation passes unanimously. That brings us to Student of the Month.
West Chicago Community High School has selected David Ramos Perez of West Chicago as Student of the Month for March 2024. He was selected by his teacher who said, "David is an outstanding, upstanding young man who puts others before himself." The AVID team nominated him to train to be a peer tutor, and he is one of the students who consistently volunteers to help the 9th and 10th grade AVID students with their tutorials. In Roar, he is reliable and attends all meetings and shines during Roar days. This last Roar, we had students who are new to the U.S. and do not speak English. He took them both under his wing and translated the entire day for them, so they were included. He truly understands what it means to be a Wildcat. A senior, David has consistently been on the honor roll and has earned a cumulative weighted grade point average of 4.653. David has participated in Algeria for 2 years as a student ambassador and became a Roar member his senior year, all while holding 2 part-time jobs. When asked about his favorite high school memory, David says, "The week leading up to the homecoming dance, because all of the events and activities that West Chicago Community High School provides to get this school involved. I felt very included. Also, the school spirit when it comes down to who will win during the pep assembly." David has this advice for future Wildcats. A lot of people take grades very lightly. In high school, if you fail a class, especially if it's a required class, you have to retake it. GPA will help a lot with how much scholarship money you will get from college. Stay on top of your grades unless you want it to affect the rest of your high school career. After high school, David plans to attend North Central College with a major in business management.
So David is running a little late, but the recognition is
Oh,
good,
I'm
and we
sorry.
can call him
We
up
could've-
when he gets here later.
All right, I'm sorry. We could have done him later. All right, thank you, though.
Okay, that brings us to good news of the district.
Okay. Wildcat Pride Award breakfast recognition. Anaya Cosme and Christina Guo are being recognized for their leadership and initiative in creating our Wildcat Pride Award breakfast program throughout the 2023-2024 school year. Each month, 2 teachers from all academic departments nominate students who have made a positive impact here at West Chicago High School. Anaya and Christina have made this a true student-led event. They send notes to the nominees, informing them of their award and inviting them to the breakfast. They make the program for the event and the certificates for each student. At the breakfast, they serve as co-MCs and coordinate the presentation with each nominating teacher. It has been great to see their ownership of this program, and we plan to continue this program in the future thanks to the great foundation that has been established by Anaya and Christina. Congratulations.
Well done, Anaya and Christina. Wait, there's more.
Board of Education citation, April 16, 2024. Whereas the boys swim team at West Chicago High School recently completed the 2023-2024 IHSA season and state championships, and whereas Brady Christopher Johnson, a senior, was a 4-year swimmer and a 3-year state qualifier, and whereas Brady Johnson compiled a record of 44 wins during his 4-year swimming career at West Chicago High School and during the regular swim seasons, and whereas Brady Johnson in the 2023 state championships at FMC Natatorium in Westmont, Illinois, took second place in the 50-yard freestyle and won first place, state champion, in the 100-yard backstroke, becoming the first boys swimming state champion in school history. And whereas Brady Johnson, on February 23, 2024, and in the 2024 state championships at FMC Natatorium in Westmont, Illinois, in the preliminary round, set a new state record in the 100-yard freestyle with a time of 46.15 seconds, and a new state record in the 100-yard backstroke with a time of 46.65 seconds. And whereas Brady Johnson, on February 24, 2024, and in the 2024 state championships at FMC Natatorium in Westmont, Illinois, and in the final round, won first place state champion in both the 100-yard freestyle and the 100-yard backstroke, becoming a back-to-back state champion in the 100-yard backstroke. And whereas Brady Johnson achieved the highest level of achievement as a swimmer, united and inspired the West Chicago High School administration, faculty, staff, students, and community, represented himself, his family, District 94, and the community with distinction and honor, and enhanced the name and reputation of West Chicago High School. Now, therefore, the Board of Education of Community High School District 94 does hereby commend Brady Christopher Johnson and declares February 23 and 24, 2024 as Brady Christopher Johnson Days. Resolved and signed the 16th day of April 2024.
Congratulations, Brady. All right, that brings us to public participation. This is the portion of our meeting where any member of the public can address the Board of Education on any topic. We welcome your comments and will carefully listen to your concerns. We will not be able to engage in a dialogue during public participation, but when appropriate, we will direct the administration to follow up. Presentations are limited to no more than 5 minutes per person, with a total time limit of 30 minutes for public participation. If you wish to make personal charges or complaints against individual employees, volunteers, or students of the district, we request that you send the board your concerns in writing rather than stating those concerns during public comment. If anyone currently present wishes to make public comment and hasn't already done so, please fill out one of the comment forms in the back of the room and hand it to someone seated at the table. At this point, we have received no electronic or in-person public comment forms, so that brings us to our presentation on teaching and learning, EL bilingual services.
So as Mary is going to the podium, we didn't have a committee of the whole meeting in early April, where we usually this year have begun giving reports, updates to the board on teaching and learning. So this was the presentation that we were going to give at the beginning of April, but now we're going to do it at the regular board meeting. And perhaps that's even a little better because we have a wider audience in terms of viewing. And just as a final note, the EL program obviously is a very critical component to our high school curriculum and teaching and learning. And there are many members of the EL team, bilingual program here, and want to commend them for the incredible job that they do every single day. The packet that you have was prepared by this team of people, and you can certainly take it with you afterwards because there's a lot of information here, and hone up on your EL knowledge. So with that, Mary Howard.
Thank you. Good evening. We do have a group that's here this evening. We're going to focus on 4 main topics, as you can see on the screen or on the first page of your handout. We're going to begin with looking at some formal definitions and then some basic data for the EL program over the last 8 years. We chose 8 years due to COVID, and then that was when Ms. Jimenez-Witten had taken over the program, so we thought that that was a nice place to start. After that, she is going to deliver kind of an overview of the program, different kinds of coursework, supports, things like that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the sheltered classes that we have in the core curriculum. And then finally, we have some faculty here this evening who are going to talk to you about the SEL components, both in the newcomer dens as well as through the social work program. So just to give you a little bit of a preview here, Mark Poulter, who is an ESL2 teacher, has a project where his students create photos that they essentially publish. And as you'll see at the end of the slide presentation, there's actually, they're being exhibited currently in April. So there'll be a number of photos throughout the presentation that were taken by students. The titles that the students have chosen are to the side or below, and we just really want to recognize them for the really incredible work that they've done here. So with that, this kind of gives you an overview of some of the key understandings that we need to think about in being able to differentiate between a student who is currently an EL student as opposed to someone who has exited the program and would be considered a formal EL. For those of us who are familiar with District 33, they have an extensive dual language program, which is also going to be very different because that is not in terms an intervention, rather is being used for enrichment as well as providing content and skill development. You'll also notice that one of the groups of students that we have to serve are EL students who also have an IEP. So have that kind of dual need that is here as well. And then ultimately, we also want to think about the group that are native speakers and how can we provide them with opportunities to continue to develop their literacy and fluency in that language. I did put an image here for you, and I will be sending you the slides after the presentation. In the notes, there's a link to this text. Incredibly comprehensive, Illinois focused. I'd really recommend it if that's something that you're interested in. So looking kind of from the beginning then, the term newcomer can be a bit misleading. So here we're looking at students who are new to the country and they're given that kind of distinction for the first 3 years that they're here. When we originally had written the presentation, there were 50 newcomers who had enrolled this year. And I believe, if I'm right, by the end of the week, it should be, we'll have 54. So as you can see, it's been a very fluid number throughout the year. And I'm sure Veronica will talk about some of the challenges that are being created by that. Newcomers, when they arrive, are placed into English or ESL 1, 2, or 3, and that's a dual block course. So that's 2 50-minute periods, 5 days a week. That gives them an opportunity to, again, kind of work on a variety of basic skills, getting them to doing more oral speaking, looking at kind of all of the areas of literacy, right, in terms of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Native speakers, and this is going to be looking at kind of the world language component here at the same time. So this is not directly EL, but just knowing that they can have the opportunity to go right into Spanish for native speakers. We offer that in a 1 and 2, so those are both full year courses. The thing that's really important about understanding that program is the students who go into Spanish for native speakers actually are accelerated over students who would be primarily English learners, and those students have the opportunity to go into AP Spanish language as juniors and then AP Spanish literature as seniors. So essentially, they're the only students who would have the opportunity to take AP Spanish literature because they're able to get that far. Both of those courses, AP Spanish language and literature, both offer opportunities for college credit. And if you score a 3, 4, or 5, depending on the college or university that you choose, that's potentially going to earn you 6 credit hours or 2 classes, which is also a financial savings. As we look at the next slide, and I do have this for you in a graph as well, but I just wanted to give it to you this way first. This is just going to provide you with some look at data by gender. So here, as you can see, our enrollment, there'll be other slides with that as well, it just has continued to grow. And if you look at 2016 as opposed to where we are now, I can't do the math in my head, but you can see appreciably it's been, an incredible increase over that time. I have that slide twice. No? Okay, so here's the male-female component. And this was interesting to me for the idea of that it seemed to be more closely related earlier on, and it looks like there really has kind of been a pull between the enrollment of males and females as we look over the 8-year period, as you can see right here. So a few ways that this is potentially relevant for us is that we know oftentimes males are more reluctant in terms of literacy. They may not have an identity as a reader or a writer. We also know that in terms of just growth, that oftentimes males are not able to catch up instructionally until after females have reached a certain point. So this does show that we've got this group of students that have this significant need that we need to be really mindful of and continue to think about how our service can evolve for them. Age and year. So this is something I personally did not know, is that the students who arrive can continue to be served through the age of 22, and that's going to depend on their arrival date. As you can see, the 14, 15, 16, 17 is definitely going to be the area where there is the most enrollment. And again, you can see the extreme change in enrollment over time. Another interesting point, if you look at home country or where the student was born, essentially our largest component is going to be our long-term language learners. This is looking at numbers over 8 years. So that's the number, that can't be right. If you look at the top 10, if you look at the top 10 countries, these are where students have come from, because we've got countries 7 through 10 are so small. And then you can see the way that that breaks out. So that really different between 16 and over 3,000 shows you some of the challenges there in service. So obviously it's going to be easier for us where most of our students primarily are Spanish speakers. And we don't have any other group currently that we're providing service for a cohort that would be requiring us to do it in their home language. But again, really that focus on long-term language learners is evident here. And with that.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of an overview and kind of some of the basics of our program, and also how we identify ESL students, because this is often a question that I've been asked. So when a student goes to register, whether they come to register to the high school for the first time in the U.S. or whether the student was born here and they're registering for pre-K or kindergarten, say at one of our elementary districts, they'll fill out their registration packet. One of the forms in the registration packet is called a home language survey. And so if a family fills out that form and indicates that another language is spoken in the home, or that the child speaks another language in the home, that triggers the district to assess the student for language assessment. So we would assess the students. It's very similar to the access test that I'll talk about later on. And if the student does not meet the exit criteria on that assessment, then they receive the label of an EL learner. So like I said, that's going to happen at registration, whether it's in pre-K, kindergarten, or here at the high school. And so ISB considers a student an EL student anyone who is pre-kindergarten all the way through 12th grade that indicated another language was spoken in the home other than English, and that who does not meet or exceed the level of proficiency on that assessment. It also says that they must be successful in their English courses, and that they may participate successfully fully in a school setting. So this is what ISB says, but I will say that at the high school level, if we know that a student has had this label for a long time, so over 7 years, and we see that the student is capable of moving up a level, although ISB still has that label for them, we will still allow the students to take higher level courses. So I know some parents or some staff may be concerned that a student has that label, even though they don't necessarily need language support. We will provide students with the opportunity to advance and to move up, but they will still have that label. So Mary talked a little bit about long-term language learners. So a long-term language learner is anyone who has been identified as EL for longer than 7 years. Once they get to that 7 years, they are considered long-term language learners. So currently, 27% of our whole student body is considered an English learner, and out of, which is a big increase since I've been here. And out of all of those students, about 87% are long-term language learners. So the vast majority of the students that we're servicing in our EL program have been identified as EL for longer than 7 years. All right, so access for ELLs. The students take this test every single year. They take it in January or February. It's a standardized English language proficiency assessment. It assesses the students in reading, listening, speaking, and writing. They can score anywhere between a 1 and a 6. In order to exit or pass the test, they must get a 4.8 overall. After they exit, a district still has to monitor them for 4 years. And that can be done in a variety of ways. Some students will take a course that we have called Study Skills, which is basically like a guided study hall, and that's a way that we can monitor them. Also, we have a lot of staff in the building that have their ESL endorsement, although they're not teaching an ESL course. So if a student is in a class with a teacher that has their certification, that is part of their monitoring as well. And for some students who may not have contact with an ESL certified teacher, we'll do monitoring through the counselor and myself. So these are the ESL levels or the courses that are offered in the EL program. So ESL 1 and ESL 2, as Mary mentioned, it is a double block. They'll be at that level. If they speak Spanish, so they come from a Spanish-speaking country, for those first 2 years, they'll receive their content courses in Spanish. So math, science, and social studies are in Spanish for those students. If they come from a country where another language is spoken other than Spanish, they are taking sheltered English courses for math, science, and social studies. And then all students are recommended to take study skills, although they don't all always take that. Some of them might take that Spanish for native speakers course that we talked about. Or if they're musically inclined, we also will allow, a student to put that into their schedule if they want to continue with that. Then we have ESL 3 and 4. That is also a double block, so 2 classes of English. When a student gets to that level, the rest of their content classes are in English. And again, we're recommending study skills for those students. Once they get through those 4 levels, it's called ESL 5, but we don't have an ESL 5 class necessarily. That class is we make up that class in English, Sheltered English 1. And then their content classes, again, are still in English, or at that point, some of the students are taking mainstream classes. So if, let's say, their biology teacher is saying they're doing really well, I don't think they need sheltered next year, so for next year in chemistry, they may be in a gen ed chemistry course. We recommend study skills if they feel like they need that. There's also another class that goes with English 1 sheltered called Bridge that a student can take. It's a little bit flexible with what level of support they might need there. Part of the program also requires that we run BPAC, which is the Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee. So we are required to meet 4 times a year. These parent meetings, I usually lead them with the help of social workers, counselors, deans. I also partner with a lot of outside community organizations. In the past, we've done BPAC with District 33 to try and entice a bigger crowd. So we've done different things. We present on a variety of topics that are geared towards parent education. I meet with the leadership of BPAC, so it's usually a group of 3 to 4 parents. I'll either invite them in the building, sometimes they prefer Zoom, and then in that leadership meeting, they kind of talk about what the current needs are, what they've been hearing, what they would like to learn about. They kind of pick the theme, the topic, and then from there, I get the people that can present on that topic. And then additionally, the parents are invited to attend a statewide BPAC conference that is held annually. So we usually send a group. This year, again, we're sending 8 parents to the statewide conference in Oak Brook, and the district pays for the conference and is also providing transportation for the parents to go. Back to Mary.
So once students have either passed access or once they've completed ESL 4 and there's the feeling that they're able to move into the sheltered curriculum, they do so. So this is going to be a content area course. So this is our English, math, science, or social studies. And you can see the challenge here is going to be the combination of content area vocabulary in addition to the general content that they're trying to learn, as well as the language. So that's one of the challenges here. That kind of course is taught by an ESL certified teacher, obviously taught in English. And then if you kind of want to look at that example right there, I liked this a lot to show the difference between the science or the content objective here, which is talking about the process of photosynthesis. And then you can see the modifications that happen to go from the most rigorous expectation to the most scaffolded. So to begin with, you may have a student who's writing in complete sentences to be able to describe this process. A modified layer to that with an additional scaffolding is to be giving them the vocabulary to be able to do that. And then finally, if the students need additional support, the kind of intervention that could be here is that they're given a diagram and then they're explaining a particular stage of that process. So that's one of the ways that we're trying to ultimately support the language development in addition to the content as well. So we'll look at each of the 4 core areas. So the English placement process has become quite robust over the last few years, and I'd really like to commend our English division head, Lauren Stewart, for that. What she's currently doing now in collaboration with the feeder districts is that they are completing a writing sample. So essentially they're taking a 9th grade level prompt, they're completing that at the middle school, they read a brief fiction piece, and then in general they're writing on trying to identify the theme, which is up here called the author's generalization. What it does is it gives Lauren a glimpse of every student's writing, so that can be helpful in the placement process. She can refer to that throughout the year if there are questions about a level change, if a teacher has a question about certain kind of skills that maybe was the student demonstrating that earlier on as opposed to now. So it's been a really wonderful resource. In addition to that, all of those are double scored. So what that means is that there are 2 English teachers who read each passage, each response, and they have to be within 1 point of one another in the scoring to make sure that they're being accurate. And then each of those are scored just for our own purposes. So the wonderful thing about that is not only is it providing us that information, but it's also really a great professional development experience for those teachers who are engaged in that as well. And as you can see at the bottom of the slide, those are the teachers who this year were able to participate. And almost all of them are some of our ESL shelter teachers as well. The addition now is looking at sheltered placement. So the change that was made this year is to add curriculum-based measures. So essentially what that is each student read 3 prompts for 1 minute each. And what we're looking here is oral reading fluency, which although it may seem like that is just communicating how well they're able to just state something, potentially, you'll hear the phrase word calling. Difference here is that fluency really is a measurement of comprehension as well. So this is a very quick benchmark that we're able to use. What we're really looking for is for students to be able to read proficiently at 150 words per minute. So obviously, if you're reading in a foreign language, that's going to be quite a challenge. So what this is able to do is kind of give us a ballpark for how they're able to do that at the end of 8th grade. And that's something then we're able to continue to work on with students over time. One of the things that's been really wonderful, Emily Brown has been using this in her course with her students. The students actually track the development week to week on their own so they can see their own growth. It's really a positive process because the students can actually see the growth in a way they generally can't in other things. Oftentimes when we're assessing students, it's so large that they can't have that feeling of accomplishment, but the CBMs are really wonderful because it's very concrete and then they can see that kind of learning happening. Then very quickly, for sheltered English placement, we just have a variety of pieces of information that we're able to use as a team to be able to ensure that it's the most accurate placement that we can have. One of the reasons that we really try to do that is just so that the students get that strongest start and not having to make schedule changes once they're here. Obviously, that's always possible and very fluid, but it's much less disconcerting for them to be able to be in that correct place to begin with. Then very quickly, we offer 2 sheltered English classes, 1 and 2, again, full year courses. Those are the 3 teachers who are responsible for teaching that this year. In terms of math, we're going not only from sheltered principles, which would be the most foundational course that we have in mathematics, all the way through next year, bilingual algebra 2. Again, you can see that we have some teachers who are teaching multiple sections of that, but very grateful for the teachers' efforts to become certified in order to be able to provide this for ESL students. In science, we have it for all 3 of the core courses. There's a 2-year requirement, so that's one of the reasons that you only see 1 name there for that we have fewer sections of that. This is Scott Albright. He's got a lot to say to you. I'm just going to say to you very briefly, if you look at those 2 bottom points, number 1, they're using essential learning objectives. So in English, we've got modified curriculum in a sheltered class. In math, we do not. In math, they're using the same objectives that they would in the course. Here in science, what they're focused on is there is some modification, but they're focused on those same essential learning objectives. So they're aligned to the NGSS standards that they're using in all of the courses. Part of the issue with that just may be ultimately either how deeply or how far that they can get in a sheltered course because there just is so much curriculum to get through in a bit of a slower pace. And the other thing that I wanted you to see there as well, that second to last bullet point, obviously science is probably one of the most challenging in the area of vocabulary. So that's an additional level of rigor and challenge that's being provided to our EL students because of that whole other set of academic vocabulary that sometimes can seem very unique. And then finally, sheltered and bilingual social studies. You can see here, extensive support in a variety of the courses, all the way through, again, that freshman, sophomore, junior. We have American history now being offered in Spanish. And then the senior American government is also supported as well. Now we're going to hear a little bit from the front lines about SEL in and outside of DEN. Thank you, guys.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Anderson. I'm one of the social workers here, and this is my colleague Erica Bibian, also a social worker here. So we'll talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things we've been doing with this population.
So in
regards to SEL and our EL students. So something to note is that they are very unique in regards to like the newcomers' needs and then the long-term language learners. We've seen different SEL challenges for both groups. So I'll start off with the newcomers. As you can imagine, like culture shock is a huge stressor and affects our newcomers the most. You know, coming into a new country with a new culture, language, and educational system is very overwhelming for our students and can be a lot to take in and at times very frustrating. For our newcomers, you know, what we've seen is trauma is a huge thing that has impacted our newcomer students, whether it be trauma that has impacted them in their native country, and that is the reason why they came to the U.S., or even trauma on their journey to the U.S. What we've noticed is that a lot of our newcomer students have not processed this trauma, and so we're kind of like that front line, those first people that they are able to process this trauma with, and it can be very heavy. Along with that is family displacement. A lot of our students unfortunately leave loved ones behind, such as parents, siblings, and this can be very impactful for our students and hard. And then one thing I've also noticed is with our students is when they do come to our country and move in with family members, they may be living with family members who they've never met before. And so unfortunately, that is also a very hard transition for them. In working with newcomers, we've also realized that the mental health stigma in other countries, unfortunately, is negative, and they're not used to seeking out SEL support. And so we're really trying to educate them and families to like utilize us as a tool to process all of the trauma, emotional stress that they may be enduring. Unfortunately, with newcomers, they sometimes only come with the clothes on their back. And so one of the things that have impacted them a lot is not having clothes, not having food security, stable housing, or even safety, like the fear of getting deported. So when you are having these fears of basic needs of like, when am I gonna get my next meal, or am I gonna have a house to live, their focus is not really education, it's more of that, like those basic needs. And then lastly, something that we've realized with newcomers, those who are coming to our country and enrolling at our school who are a little bit older have had progressed in their education system in their native country. And so when they do enroll into our school, it's kind of hard for them because at times they may be set back a little bit. And that could be for various reasons, meaning that, you know, their graduation requirements in their native country may not be the same as ours, or their credits didn't transfer for many reasons, right? And so this also stresses many of our newcomers, older newcomers, and impacts them emotionally as they see like their friends back home progressing in their lives and graduating from their schools when they get set back a little bit more.
So in regards to long-term language learners, the first bullet point I have there is cohort syndrome. If you go home and Google that, you probably won't find what I'm about to tell you. But that was my best way of trying to describe something that I've seen both in our school district and the other 3 school districts that I've been able to work in regards to their EL programs. Everyone seems to be struggling with this. When you have a group of students that all are not able to achieve the level that they would like to on an access test, and then they're all together having the same classes, the same teachers, year after year after year, there ends up being this interesting, unique culture built that I call a cohort, and they develop a comfort together, and the teachers are now needing to teach to this specific group and figure out how to scaffold with that, and it's not an easy thing to do. And so a learned helplessness is a common component of this. Obviously it's not the whole group, but it's at a higher percentage than we will have with other groups that we have in the school. We'll also find that there's a lack of proficiency in both languages. Some of our long-term language learners, yes, they do speak another language at home, but English is actually their strongest language, but they have a higher level of gap in their English language than somebody who may have grown up with that being their only language. The reality is all of us have gaps in our language. The question is to what degree, right? So another thing is lacking the awareness of one's own potential. We found that students' ability to have high level of success here at high school and beyond is their ability to dream well for themselves. If you're going to dream well for yourself, you need to be able to understand what your potential is and what your options are. This particular group struggles with this more than others. And then there's a need for a higher level of self-advocacy. There's a high level of need in this group, but we're finding that the students that come seek us out and bring their problems to the forefront is not so much this group. We have to spend a lot more time trying to figure out how do we get to them and then bring them back into our offices. So what we're describing, it's not unique to our district. This is every EL group in every district, but it's a significant thing to understand.
So these are a few of the interventions that we do as social workers. So this year we did conduct a needs assessment across all EL levels 1 through 4 to kind of see exactly what data we are able to see in regards to what needs they need and like how we can support them emotionally and socially. As we mentioned before, there's a wide spectrum of needs with our EL students. So by conducting this needs assessment, we were able to collect data and kind of gear our interventions towards that data. Last year, we did have a newcomer SEL group that I facilitated with Jeff. We had a boys and a girls newcomer group, and we were able to work on various topics within that group. Since the influx of newcomer students, we kind of made that in a more broader spectrum where we collaborated with the newcomer den. So we push in SEL lessons for the newcomer students in all the sections, which Jeff will touch base on that in a little bit. McKinney-Vento services, as mentioned, many of our students are doubled up with other family members, and so we provide those McKinney-Vento services, whether that be community resources, different ways to help them out to kind of meet their, basic needs. We do individual and group counseling. We have collaborated with SPED this year as well, as we saw an influx with students or newcomers who have disabilities, specifically students on the spectrum. Tiendita Wigo is something that we've created this school year, which is a really, awesome thing that we have at our school, which is a little store. Tiendita means corner store. And so students are able to shop for clothes at our tiendita. So we've had a lot of donations from different staff members, agencies, because like I mentioned before, meeting those basic needs is what we want to do first. So that way they can really focus on their education. And what we mentioned before, the BPAC meetings, we definitely get involved with the BPAC meetings and do presentations and help the parents get educated with different SEL topics.
So this year we've been able to push into the dens and have lessons with typically about 30 to 40 students at a time. Which is good for us to have more face time with them and to be able to get a lot more information to as many students as possible. So initially, we gave them a community building lesson, which is an investment in the next 5 lessons, really, because we're building trust with them and trying to establish a joyful connection so that they want to listen to us in the next 5 times that we show up. So then we move into discussing culture shock, where all of the students are at various levels, but it helps to normalize their experience with that. We discuss healthy relationships. Every single one of us needs a network of people that we can depend on. Unfortunately, not all students in the high school have the number of people that they need that they can go to, both adults and peers. This particular group of students, we want to be resources to help build that out for them. So that's one of the things that we touched on. Neurodiversity, we weren't actually planning on having this as part of our curriculum, but the teachers requested this because we have a higher number of students that have an autism label right now, and so that added a unique dynamic to their classrooms. So that was helpful for the students to be able to have a greater understanding of that. Identifying and managing emotions. It sounds simple, but what we find is when somebody's dealing with something difficult or somebody difficult and you're able to label what's going on and figure out what is a next logical step, that's very helpful. And the next thing that we're going to be discussing will be end of the year accomplishments, so the students can see their growth that they've achieved.
I'm Beth Govertson. I teach ESL 2, 3, and I have the newest of the newcomer DENs this year. Last year it was pretty clear that the regular DEN curriculum was not going to suit our students, so we asked if we could create new curriculum, and they said yes. And Brittany Nelson, Emily Brown, and I sat down over the summer, and we had this plan and all of these lessons, and we started off pretty strong, and we were able to adhere to our schedule, and then the sections grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And we started to realize that these kids had different needs than we were providing with them here, for them here. These are some of our outside days in DEN when we take them out and teach them American games, bags, and jump the creek and volleyball. And you hear all this negative about these obstacles that these kids are facing, but they are the most joyful humans that I have ever had the pleasure of working with. So it's not all bad. The newcomer DEN, I want you guys to just imagine being in a one-room schoolhouse with kids between the ages of 14 and 19. And right now, these are all the countries that are represented in our newcomers DEN. And then imagine a broad spectrum of levels of education and traumatic experiences. We have an autism spectrum, and then we have this variety of basic needs that we're looking out for. So with all the good intention we had of building these lessons for the kids, we really found ourselves, the bigger the DENs got, the more time we had to hone in on their physiological and safety needs. And that takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of individual attention for the students. So it's been difficult, but we cannot express our gratitude enough for the attention that we've received, the response that we received from Erica and Jeff. These guys, when they come in, it's the best day of the week. The newcomers absolutely love working with these guys. The admin team has been so responsive, in the board for opening up new sections along the way. When we have that extra space and time, we really can take care of these kids in the best way possible. So thank you to all of you as we anticipate even more kids coming next year. Okay.
Okay, so to kind of close out this presentation, I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the challenges in bilingual and EL in our program. So obviously the newcomer enrollment is unpredictable. Last year we had an influx, so this year I sectioned more, thought we were ready, we all felt confident, and then that blew up in about November. And so as Beth said, we responded as quickly as we could. Obviously, the board approved a bunch of overloads so that we can open more sections, which was a huge help. But that continues to be a struggle because we went from receiving 20-ish a year to, in 2 years, we're at about 100 newcomers. And so I don't know that that's going to slow down. So preparing for next year is a challenge. But we are opening more sections. We're hiring a whole nother ESL teacher. Again, thank you for approving the ESL support, like lead teacher position. I'm really excited for that. That will really help me, move forward and make some decisions for this program. Also, a big challenge is the discrepancy between the newcomer needs and their trauma and basic needs with the long-term language learners who really struggle to connect with school, have really struggled to see academic success, and how do we convince them that they can be academically successful here. Access testing, they hate taking it, I hate giving it, but I have to do it. There's no incentive for them to take it other than if you don't do it, they're going to take our money. Like, that means nothing to them. So that's always a struggle. But most of them show up, so I can't complain. But my goals for the department are to continue to grow and evolve with whatever the student needs are each year. I'd like to continue to develop the scope and sequence for newcomers and long-term language learners. So we saw the need that a lot of these older newcomers that were coming in and all we could offer them was either principles of algebra or regular algebra in Spanish. And they were like, we've done this already. So I have an 18-year-old sitting with a 14-year-old who's already done this versus the 14-year-old that's never seen algebra. And so this coming year, we're opening up Algebra 2 in Spanish. So that's going to be really helpful for some of those older students to continue to develop mathematically, but also do it in a language that they understand. My goal is also to continue to section students as best as I can. So the students that are transitioning and are incoming freshmen, I want to be able to place them appropriately as quickly as possible so that I don't have to move them once they've already started. And the same for newcomers when they arrive, that I can, analyze their transcripts if they come with transcripts and what do they need and how quickly can I get them out of here if they're older and they're ready to start their lives, they want to go to college, and I don't want to hold them back by telling them you have to start high school all over again. Build a program for them. That's my big goal. Continue to push those long-term language learners into AVID. It's super helpful that District 33 is doing AVID now so that when they get here, they're exposed to it, they know it, and they can just continue to go with that. A big topic that we've been talking as an admin team is just freshmen on track. I want to do that, the same focus with long-term language learners, because as we started diving into the data, just, briefly, those long-term language learners are all over that. So I definitely want to focus on that and how can I keep them on track and decrease the number of Fs within the long-term language learners. So to end on something cute, these are some of the project that Mary was talking about in Mark Poulter's class with the photographers. These are the students in the cohort, so these are the current group. It used to just be one group of kids, but now it's two groups of kids that are working on this project. This is the one that is on display now. You should check it out. They're also making video recordings in their native language and in English, which is really sweet to hear it in their own words as they're, trying to become American and, find themselves here. This was from last year. Being seen was the topic last year. The year before that, the journey home, and that was that cohort. And just so that you understand, there is a pretty good turnout of ESL personnel here, but we have a lot of support in the building, counselors, social workers, program assistants, my administrative assistant, who is the first face that newcomers see. She is amazing. She does a lot for this program. And then a list of all of the teachers that teach either a bilingual section or a sheltered section. It's large. I'm grateful that those teachers are willing to get their endorsement so that we can continue to provide courses for these students. And that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. One question I had is, how do we meet the needs of the students that are non-English, non-Spanish? What resources do we have for those?
So those students get placed into the same ESL, like 1 through 2. And that course is in English anyway, the double block. And so Mark Poulter teaches it, Emily Brown and Beth Govertson teach those levels. And so those classes are just in English anyway. The tricky part is when they're taking their content classes, so math, science, and social studies. It is tricky, and it's unfortunate that we can't provide native language instruction because I'd love to continue to build the literacy in both languages. But I think oftentimes because they don't have anyone that can speak their native language, their English picks up pretty quickly, their social English, I should say. But that's kind of how we address those needs.
Thank you for stepping up, meeting the challenge.
I'm having acronym breakdown here. Can you explain to me the difference between EL and ESL? Are they interchangeable?
So EL is the student, it's the English learner. And then ESL is English as a second language. That's the name of the course.
I thought I had that figured out, but then you have this plate that says identifying an ESL student and ISBE EL criteria. Did those get mixed up? in
Yeah,
that
so
plate?
and also the one that the state also likes to throw in is a multi-language learner, because there are a lot of students that come from countries that they're already speaking 2 languages, and when they get here, this is actually their 3rd language. So all of those terms do get used interchangeably.
But they shouldn't.
They can.
They can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and over the last couple of decades, between the federal government and the state, they've changed the terminologies. So before it was EL, it was ELL, English language learners. And none of them are wrong, as long as we're focusing on supporting the needs of our kids.
So EL is the student, ESL is the course and faculty and things. Okay.
Did you recover?
Yes, I thought I had that figured out, and then this one plate threw me off, so.
Literacy level and math level are we seeing when students graduate that have been like the long-term EL learners?
Usually they get to geometry.
And literacy. And what are they able to access as far as classes when they get to college? Or what does like their post-secondary planning look like?
Yeah, so it really depends on what those students' goals are going to be. So we have a student that came from Ukraine. He was almost done with high school there. He came here. He's like, let's get this show on the road. So he's actually graduating. He just got here last year, and he's graduating. And he applied to U of I, was accepted. He had to do some other like language proficiency assessment. The district paid for him to be able to take that assessment to prove, where his language literacy was. And I'm assuming that they have some level of support that they can provide for him there. College of DuPage has an ESL program, so a lot of the students that are unsure what they want to do, we try and push them to go there, like start there, the supports are there, it's close by, and then you have some time to think about what it is that you want to do, and then from there transfer if, whatever it is that they want to do.
And typically, do you find that they do have like success in securing classes that are not like remedial classes?
It depends on when they get here. So for some of the students, the long-term language learners are taking remedial classes because when they're graduating here, they are a little bit behind, and so they are taking a remedial class. But COD comes here and does all of the assessments as well, and tries to promote. We've also tried to do some of the stuff in summer school to get the kids where they need to be. And then we have in the math department now, if a student fails a class their first semester, instead of waiting till the summer, they can simultaneously make it up so that they don't fall behind. So that is an area that we are still developing and growing in.
And you mentioned earlier, or I think it was previously mentioned, that students find it difficult to build that student capacity in building their ability to think they have the potential to do things. So what are things that you feel you have seen for the ones that do have it that end up working and making them kind of build that self-determination?
So I think what Mary talked about, the CBMs, where the kids are charting their growth and they can see it, that is super helpful to see them succeed. And then also what we've tried to do with the counselors is if we feel like a student, like I see there's something in there, like let's say with science, like I think you're ready, and the kid's like, no, I want to stay in sheltered chem. We're like, we'll keep you in sheltered for everything else, but let's see how you do in just regular chem. If it's not going well, we'll pull it back and you can come back to sheltered. So that has been helpful to like push a kid in a class that we see that they're finding some success, And when they branch out and they're in a gen ed and they're exposed to different types of students and different learners, and they see that they can hold their own, that's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can do it in social studies. Maybe I can do it in English. So we kind of try and roll it out that way. And through that whole process, we're talking to the parents. We're like, hey, the teacher sees something in your son or in your daughter that they're ready for it. And so between the teacher, the social or the counselor, and the parent telling this kid, like, I think you can do it, and kind of just pushing it one class at a time, that has been pretty successful. Also, if like they're not really doing much in study skills, we'll try and push them into like a foods class or into some other type of elective that is of interest to them, so that again they're exposed to other types of learners and they can start to get comfortable, like, okay, I think I can hold my own with this group, and that can kind of push them. So trying to find it, I mean, we have a lot of periods a day, so if we can push them one period a day, that's helpful.
So when you mentioned the parent, that's actually what I was going to ask about next. Do you feel that they're receptive in kind of working with you and partnering in terms of the feedback that you're giving them? Are they receptive to that and accepting of it?
Yeah, 100%. I think because at the middle school, and this is not like a knock at any specific middle school, it's just the nature of middle school, that even if a student isn't doing well academically, they might have to do like a summer school, but they get to move on. It's not typical for a middle schooler to repeat a class level. So when they get here and that's on the line, and everyone starts to like take things a little bit more serious, and we're talking to the parents about like, hey, here's what we're seeing now, here's where we want to get, they're very receptive. And that's my favorite part about working with EL parents, is that they trust us, they are looking to us, they want to work with us. So it is very rare that a parent is not with us and wanting to, partner with us to push their student.
In a similar vein, I do want to comment or share an observation that I made earlier this year, board members. I was very pleased to hear that we are not just tracking, but continuing to support students who are exited out of the EL program. Because often what happens at the elementary and middle school level, after a period of years, kids test proficient in English, and then they start taking regular courses. We are required to continue monitoring those students' progress and supporting them. And I was very pleased here at West Chicago High School that does take place. It was one of the questions early on that I had asked, and I was very impressed with the fact that we do have plans in place and monitoring tools in place to help make sure that those kids are successful. And it leads into some of the questions that you asked about, Penny, because it is unfortunately all too common in other school districts where a kid will exit, or they'll become English proficient, they'll pass the test, the access test, and then, and I'm not saying that they're necessarily wiping their hands clean of those students, but it's easy to lose track of them once they start just taking regular courses. That does not happen here at WeGo. We do keep a very close eye on those kids and make sure that they're supported.
Along those lines, are we tracking graduation rates for EL and former EL students, and do we see differesses?
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about when I said that the admin team has started to kind of dive into some of that data on how freshmen are doing and how they're staying on track and passing classes. So in that data, we are seeing that some of the students that are falling behind and need more than 4 years to graduate a lot of them do tend to be long-term language learners. So for us, the goal is, all right, we have 4 years, those 4 years go quick, so let's focus on those freshmen and really, how can we maximize their freshman year and make sure that that's not happening.
So for some of the non-long-term language learners that, proficiency somewhere along the way, are we seeing good graduation rates?
So our newcomer graduation rates are like near perfect. Like the majority of the students that come in as newcomers are graduating in 4 years, if not sooner, because most of them are pretty highly motivated. There are times where a 19-year-old will come, they don't want to start over, they come for a year or two, and they're like, I'm going to go get my GED so that I can just start college right away instead of waiting the whole 4 years. So that data will show that we have like dropouts, but I would say the majority of them, it's because that's what they're doing. They're going to go get their GED because they can do it in Spanish, and then they can start college.
Veronica, I want to thank you for all the tools that you guys use to place students, because I know it's not an easy job. It's very, I'm assuming, very time consuming. So thank you for doing that. So I wanted to ask you about the individual conferences. What do those look like? Are those like goal driven with the student and like asking them like where they want to go? Like, how are those more?
Where is that?
I think that's probably in reference to Lauren Stewart. And I think what that is kind of having that as one of the components of the placement process as they go through. So sometimes the data is really clear and it's very evident what would be best for a student. And sometimes, even though you're looking at 4 or 5 different things, it still isn't clear. So then I think that's when those conversations are being had, like in addition to teachers at Lehman, but also with, families or even students.
I also know that happened during bridge classes. So some of those kids come to bridge, and then the English teacher will be like, what English are you going to be in? Because they start to see some things like, maybe you don't need this level of class. So sometimes the individual conferences will take place during that bridge time. And on occasion, which is what I said I'm trying to minimize, the first week or two that they're here, we realize like, oh, I think maybe you may have been misplaced, and we'll have that conference with them, review all that data again.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for a wonderful presentation, and thank you for the wonderful ways that you're serving our students. That brings us into reports and information. Director of Business Services report.
Thank you. So in reviewing the current FY24 budget, there are a couple of accounts that will need to be amended as the expenditures have exceeded the 10% of the budgeted amount. Those accounts are the Board of Education expenditures, then for SACITA and TCD tuition, and also for driver's education. So I'll plan to present an amended budget at the May COW and then ask the board to approve at the June board meeting. You also might have noticed underneath new business that there's not a bid approval for the main gym refinishing project, and that's because we didn't receive any bids. We did have a couple of quotes in hand before we went out to bid, but I guess the timetable might have been a little too tight for them, so we'll try again. We'll go back out in the fall and hopefully get that scheduled for next summer. Then an update on the summer food service program. As you might have noticed under new businesses, Quest and their contract, and they were the lone bid, lone quote that was submitted for that program, and so I've already started planning with them. We're working on those locations and figuring out how to do the setup and the times for that, and figuring out menu options. And so I'm already starting to work with Brittany Walker on figuring out best ways of communicating that out to the families and the community. And there'll be more information as we wrap things up with that and finalize details. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dan. Director of Human Services report.
All right, good evening. When we met last month, I provided you with an update on the insurance committee, but we were still waiting to hear our final rates at the EBC final insurance renewal meeting on March 20th. At that meeting, Mr. Oberg and I learned that the district's total medical premium increases for the next fiscal year would be 8.8% on HMO and 9.3% on PPO. Although this is lower than the projected increase of 12.9% for HMO and matches the projected 9.3% for PPO, it is undeniably still a substantial hike on top of the 7 to 11% increases that we saw over the past 2 years. The insurance committee met 6 times between February 5th and April 8th with the goal of containing costs for employees and for the district. Mr. Oberg and myself, along with our EBC representative, worked closely with a team of 3 teachers and 1 support staff member to provide plan change options for consideration in order to reduce the insurance increases for FY25. Unfortunately, after those 9 weeks of meetings, the teachers and support staff decided not to reach an agreement on any plan change options, with an understanding that insurance costs would be split in accordance with the established language in each collective bargaining agreement. What that means for teachers is that the board and employee retain the contractual split to a 5% increase and then split 50-50 after that, whereas support staff maintain the contractual board and employee contribution percentages. You have a recommendation before you this evening to approve the annual medical insurance premium increases in accordance with both CBAs. With that, we're almost ready to enter open enrollment season in May. We are currently working closely with the EBC to prepare the enrollment site and materials. With the high increases this year, educating staff on their benefits and options has never been more important. We'll be offering a number of flexible options, including an all-staff benefits meeting, drop-in Q&A sessions, an on-demand pre-recorded presentation, as well as one-to-one technology and Spanish language support sessions. I expect it will be another successful enrollment period this spring. Next, as a reminder, the deadline for board members to file their statement of economic interests under the Illinois Governmental Ethics Act is coming up on Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. And finally, most importantly, it is my distinct honor to introduce you to two recommended candidates for administrative positions in the district. First, I will ask our recommended candidate for Director of Specialized Services, Megan Payleitner, to stand. Megan has been an educator for 16 years, serving as both a special education teacher and most recently as the Assistant Director of Specialized Services here at WeGo. She has extensive knowledge of special education policy, procedure, and best practices, with broad experiences leading multidisciplinary teams, collaborating with a variety of stakeholders, and implementing innovative strategies to support students with disabilities in reaching their full potential. This past year, Megan started parent coffee houses for our DLP and transition families, offering information and support to guide them through the adult service world. She is also proud of the work the department has done to improve the services to meet all students' needs. Megan has a strong vision for the department and looks forward to continuing to support the staff in meeting students' learning and behavior needs. Thank you, Megan. And last but not least, I want to ask our recommended candidate for Division Head of Physical Development, Connor Zapital, to please stand. Connor is a WeGo alumni who has spent his whole career serving the West Chicago community as a physical development and driver education teacher, coach, summer driver education program coordinator, and interim division head of physical development. He holds a master's degree in educational leadership from Aurora University and also completed his administrative internship at West Chicago Community High School. Through his leadership experiences, Connor has gained the respect and trust of the teachers in his division and the administrative team. But he will still tell you that his proudest accomplishment is seeing the growth in his students. Connor looks forward to supporting the teachers in the physical development division as WeGo moves into the future. Congratulations, Connor. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Principal's report.
Thank you. Tonight I want to take some time to recognize so many tremendous things happening here at WeGo as we head into the final home stretch of the school year. First, the personal finance team led by Ms. Fickus had one of the highest scores in the state of Illinois this year, and they will be advancing to the state competition with a chance to advance to the national meet later this year. I will keep you all posted on their progress. Earlier this month, the Wildcat Chronicle traveled to Kansas City to compete at the National Journalism Conference. They were awarded the very prestigious Pacemaker Award from the National Scholastic Press Association. All of the hard work and dedication our journalism program has shown this year, combined with their high-quality journalism, earned them this incredible recognition. We'll be planning to recognize them at a future board meeting. The chess team also had a very successful trip to Baltimore last weekend, finishing 9th overall out of the 25 teams at that tournament. I do want to personally thank the board for approving and supporting these trips that both happened this month. Also, recognizing a newer club of ours, our Drone Club has had an incredible success this year. At the conference competition on April 6th, hosted at New Trier High School, Ethan Villano and Lucas Hernandez placed first in the final drone race, and the varsity pilots won a sudden death overtime lap race. I'm not fully sure what that is. But they were able to secure the full conference sweep. This new club has really enjoyed tremendous success, and we'd be remiss if we didn't owe a debt of gratitude to the Education Foundation, who really invested quite a bit in them last year and this year to support them. Not to be outdone, the spring sports season is underway, and we have had some great performances by our Wildcat teams. The girls' soccer team was able to win the DeKalb Tournament Championship earlier this month, defeating Rockford East, DeKalb High School, West Aurora, and Yorkville. Additionally, our girls' softball team is off to an outstanding 6-1 start on their season with a close 1-0 win over 14th-ranked Wheaton Warrenville South. After enduring a lot of rainouts to start the year, they've had a great run. Additionally, our badminton team is currently undefeated in conference, and the boys volleyball and boys and girls track teams are also off to good starts. Today and tomorrow, right here in this very room, 74 WeGo seniors had individual sit-downs with counselors from College of DuPage in order to select courses for next year. And the fact that they were able to do it right here without having to go to COD is a benefit of the memorandum of understanding that the board has supported for the last 2 years with College of DuPage. This has been a significant partnership and continues to pay dividends for our kids, who are some of the few who get to select their courses right here on campus. Thursday and Friday of this week, we will be administering the SAT, the PSAT, and the Illinois Science Assessment. As a reminder, we have been preparing for the first time digital administration of the SAT and a new digital platform for the Illinois Science Assessment this year. The logistics and work that have been ongoing, and I really want to thank Ms. Wint and Mr. Albright for their tireless efforts to pull this off. While there are a lot of new variables, I'm very confident that we are prepared on our end, and all students who are coming in, please charge your Chromebooks. That is a big thing that has to happen. Also, I want to remind the board, friendly reminder that on the 15th of May at 7 p.m., we will celebrate commencement at NIU's Convocation Center. I can't wait to see all of you there. And finally, I want to remind everybody that on Thursday, 4/25, Friday, 4/26, and Saturday, the 27th, WeGo Drama will present the musical Mean Girls at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. I won't go too far into it because this month's student representative, Alejandra Rocha, is a member of the cast, and I'm sure she'll be making a plug for the show in her board report coming up in just a little bit. And then last but not least, the discipline and attendance reports are in your packet.
Thank you, Will.
The drone club or drone team? I missed.
Club. But
Who's
it
the
does
sponsor?
have Mr. Singer, one of our physics teachers, is the sponsor. Does a tremendous job. Yeah.
All right, teaching and learning report.
I have 4 brief things for you this evening. First of all, on April 1st, we had our final professional development day of the year. On that day, 2 of the key items were, 1, finishing our mandated training for the year. So the state identifies certain trainings that must happen in person. The one that we were completing was domestic violence prevention. That's particularly focused on students in that situation. We were able to have a presenter from the Addison YMCA do the presentation for us, and that's been one of the things we've really been kind of tapping into, are some local providers in order to have the kind of that level of expertise. We are talking about making a shift next year to doing all of the mandated presentations during faculty meetings in order to free up more time on the institute days, since there are so very few of them. We've also been working with First Educational Services. They're an organization out of Wisconsin that focuses on grading, assessment, curriculum development. So this is our 2nd year partnering with them. Becky Pepler is the name of one of the consultants that we work closely with. So she worked with 2 of our course teams who are working on curriculum writing at the freshman level, both health and world geography. And then she'll be back on April 30th to do a presentation on proficiency scales. So really looking at being able to identify what it is that we want students to be able to do, as opposed to offering criteria of what they should not be able to do. So a proficiency scale really kind of breaks down skills or larger tasks into components based on the standards and targets, as opposed to sometimes in a rubric you'll see where we're trying to identify errors that a student may make. So this is kind of more of a positive focus on that kind of skill growth. In addition to that, our second item, just a brief update on DEN. We've really had a focus on engagement. One of the challenges is having 2,000 students who are all having DEN academic support or study hall at the same kind of time. And obviously is something that is still new to the building. We still don't have 4 years of background where the freshmen who come in are having the same experience as the seniors. So once we go through 4 years, we definitely feel like it will be more of a normalized experience. So the engagement component outside of when we're having competitions or different kinds of activities that the kids are really enjoying, it's that SEL component that's been a challenge for us in terms of lessons. So what the teacher leaders have engaged in is meeting with groups of students, so focus groups from a student from each den at each grade level over the semester thus far. So they've met a number of times, trying to work on not only what topics would be of most interest and importance to those students, but looking at how the students could be involved in some component of the planning. So that's one of the things we're really trying to focus on for next year. In addition to that, the teacher leaders are always trying to gain feedback from the den teachers themselves, but as we're wrapping up the year, we're doing that in a really formal process where the teacher leaders are meeting with small groups of the den teachers to have some frank conversations about how they're feeling the program is going overall. And we're also going to extend that so that we'll have some period by period offerings where the den teachers have the opportunity to come in and speak with Dr. Dwyer and myself about their experience with den over the last 2 years. And then I'd also like to just very briefly say for next year, our goals in terms of that are really trying to expand on bringing in some speakers and some areas of interest that may connect to pathways that we're offering, looking at that PACE modeling in terms of counseling that looks at the different things that students should be exposed to before they graduate, and really kind of trying to expand that component. So I'd like to really thank the teacher leaders who are providing professional development on a weekly basis. We have 2 of them paired up at each of the grade levels, as well as 2 who are special educators who are working with the group as a whole. And I also wanted to particularly thank Michelle Walters, who is very involved in all of our SAT and PSAT preparation in DEN, which was a very, very significant lift, and she was really remarkable with that. The last 2 very brief items, we're beginning the course proposal process for a year from the fall, so the 25-26 school year. And one of the things that's been exciting is talking with CTE Director Mark Wolf, as well as Scott Albright in terms of health services, Steve Balhan, who is working in math, to look at some of the courses that we could be offering that would contribute to further pathways in the years as we go forward. So things like looking at an expansion into some construction coursework. Since we'll have students in geometry and construction in the fall, we'll want to have an offering for them afterward for that. There's a course that we're investigating called AMPed, which is pairing algebra and manufacturing together. That's an offering potentially for freshmen in the future, as well as really looking at expanding the science offerings for students who are potentially interested in health careers. And then finally, we'll be talking about summer curriculum with the division heads once we finish with the standardized testing this week, and really looking at the work that a variety of teams will be doing over the summer to get ready for students in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Student Board Representative report.
Good evening. My name is Alejandra, and I'm currently a junior here at West Chicago Community High School. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Dwyer and all of you for allowing me to speak here today about my experience as a Wildcat over the past 3 years. This school has truly helped me so much, from the teachers here, extracurriculars, and even sports. Being able to share my experiences and having prominent members of the community here to listen is incredible. From my freshman year until now, I have felt fortunate enough to have staff members in the building that I can trust or confide in for help. I appreciate the way many teachers in the building are willing to make these connections with students that tend to improve their comfort in class. One thing I will say is that I do miss the school spirit this school had right after the pandemic. My freshman year, you could feel it at every school event, club meeting, and sporting events. Throughout the past 3 years, I was a part of the cheer team, track and field, We Go Global, and most recently joined the school's speech team and drama program. Being a 3-season athlete my first year brought me a lot of excitement to start off my high school career. Not only did the cheer and track team welcome me with open arms, but they also had some amazing teammates that became close friends. Some of these people I would see in classes or clubs, such as We Go Global, another community of amazing people that are all leaders in their own right, ready to help others within our community or even on a global scale. For me personally, this club has built stronger connections with the students involved and also the club advisor, Mrs. Haas, a teacher that I can trust and has taught me so much beyond just in the classroom. Even clubs that I found later in my high school career, such as the school's drama program, helped me grow as a person, build connections and confidence within myself to speak up in places like this. Freshman year me would have been much more hesitant to speak in a board meeting, but junior year me is excited about this opportunity. The academics at the school are also something I feel is taken very seriously by many students, many of them with high GPAs and or making honor roll. Many of these students, including myself, are also very involved with sports and or clubs that make finding places to study and get homework done more difficult. Thank you for the addition of more study spaces throughout the school year as part of the 2020 construction. These spaces allow for students like myself to maintain grades while staying involved because we can find spaces within the school to do homework. The addition of DEN has given the opportunity for students to have a built-in study period without needing to give up an elective. I hope in the future there can be even more of these study spaces to use during DEN that allow students to concentrate more in a more comfortable environment. Overall, this building and the people inside it are amazing and so helpful for people who may not be able to get their work done at home or right after school. Although the school spirit and energy may not be the same as it once was, this doesn't stop other students that enjoy and take pride in their clubs or sports to let their energy die down. The football team, wrestling, swimming being some of the just amazing teams that have had incredible seasons and managed to bring some excitement to the building. I hope this continues into the final few weeks of the school year. As my high school career enters its final year, it's also a sad realization that after about 11 years as a Wildcat, soon I'll be finding a college, likely with a different mascot. Since first grade, I was part of the youth cheer program, and for most of those years, we were given the chance to use the high school cheer mats and the school's field house for practices. For the past 3 years, I've been a coach, and I've been so grateful that this school continues to allow for these future Wildcats an opportunity to grow each year and are given the resources to be safe while doing so. Although I will be sad leaving this community, I couldn't be more excited to get my senior year started this upcoming fall.
Thank you for your report, Alejandra.
I want to thank you for mentioning the fact that the students would like more study space. I don't think we've ever had a comment like that until now. So I would recommend the administration take that seriously as we're talking about changes to the building.
It will be noted in the minutes.
There's a lot of good opportunities in the building for some flexible furniture. I'll talk to Mr. Oberg after this.
All right, superintendent's report.
Just a follow-up to Will's little announcement, a reminder to the board and community that prior to next month's regular May 21st board meeting, we will hold our 119th commencement exercises on Wednesday, May 15th at 7 p.m. at Northern Illinois University in DeKalb. The doors open for parents at 6 p.m. We'd also like all board members and ceremony participants to arrive no later than 6 p.m. Directions for parking and other protocols will be coming in the next 2 weeks from Dr. Dwyer. Regarding board policy, we received Press Plus issue number 114. Led by John, we will review the recommended policy changes from the Illinois Association of School Boards and discuss these changes with the administrative team. Additionally, we will be reviewing policy 7:190 student behavior to consider changes to our discipline policies regarding the definition of weapons by including ammunition. Our anticipated timeline for policy changes is as follows. The first reading to the Board of Education at the regular May 21st meeting, possible review and further discussion at the June 4th Committee of the Whole meeting, and then second reading and recommendation for approval at the regular June 18th meeting. Regarding the new superintendent transition, Dr. Johansson, who is here with us this evening, continues his transition into the district with departmental, division, team, and legal council meetings. Freedom of Information Act request, we received 2 FOIAs this week. Julie responded within the required time frame, and they are listed in your packet. And that is it for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Attila. Committee and representative reports.
So with regard to DEOS, enrollment from member districts as of March the 1st was 1,198, which is 69 up higher than a year ago on March 21st, 2023. The FY24 CTEI disbursements, Dale received $1.4 million of the budgeted approximately $2.9 million for FY24. This represents the funds vouchered as of February the 1st. Regarding the new state CTEI funding formula, ISBE is proposing a new funding formula that provides funding for CTE program based on student enrollment, participants, and concentrator counts, and uses a multiplier based on each district's final percent of adequacy to calculate adequacy adjusted counts for each district. The agency intends to phase in the new funding formula over 4 years in such a way that prevents any EFE from losing funds year over year during the phase-in period. Proposed rules for this funding ended on March the 31st. The TCD projected enrollment and staffing for FY24, that we received the enrollment projections from each member district, of which there are 14. The current projected enrollment for next year is 1,542. At this time last year, there was a projected enrollment of 1,392, which is about 150 more, which is significant when you think about TCD schedule and managing those courses. Based on this increase in enrollment, the executive director recommended adding several teaching positions for next school year. TCD Skills USA participants completed their qualifying assessments in February. 64 students qualified for the state competition that will be held in Peoria on April 25th through the 27th. TCD will host the 7th grade career fair virtually on the week of April 22nd. It's preparing for the event through the event partner Junior Achievement. This event gives potential students a look inside TCD, its experience, and shows them what is waiting for them during their high school careers. And finally, there's a bulleted list of information regarding TCD enrollment and program information. Highest enrollment is projected in over 40 years at TCD for this coming year. We're recommending 41 FTE teaching positions to the DEOS board. There is a consideration for splitting the AM and PM students in order to help balance sections. They are also reviewing IEP and 504 data to determine the amount and number of support staff needed. Currently, the construction trades and HVAC residential wiring programs share the same space. Programs will be moved around to maximize the current space to near full capacity. The welding technology program does not have capacity for 130 students, which is what its projected enrollment is. And the administration is going to explore the feasibility of offering 3 sessions in the future, an AM and then 2 PM sessions. That's pretty significant because with that increased enrollment, there's not enough space in either just the AM or PM, and so they're looking at offering an hour-and-a-half session from 3 to 4:30 with a maximum capacity of 30 students, particularly in welding technology. Schools and students may need to be willing to move to this section. The executive director and the principal of TCD will be working with schools that may be affected. An alternative to this is turning students away due to capacity challenges. It's not really an alternative, but that's really the challenge. And students would be offered a second choice if that is available. Again, I think that's the end result if we can't balance those sections and offer a third section during the late afternoon. And finally, electrical engineer and architect programs are evaluating their power capacity for potential additions to welding technology. So with the addition of students and need for more equipment, there becomes a need for more power, and so that's a construction facility issue. And that's the report.
From the world of SACIT.
Yes, our SACIT Board of Directors met last on March 20th, which if you recall, that was the day after our last board meeting. So yes, I will be at another meeting tomorrow. And just as I always do, I will share that information with you in this week's weekly update. But just as I shared this information with you back on, I believe it was March 22nd, I just want to repeat it for the public's knowledge. So it was actually a shorter meeting. The interim executive directors shared a couple of updates. The first one I thought was kind of neat. They hold an annual Rich Laren Day of Outdoor Learning for all SACIT students, and that is going to be held this year on Friday, March 3rd at the St. James Farm in Warrenville, just south of Cantigny there. The March Cooperative Quarter newsletter is included, it's linked in the packet. Please take a look at that at your leisure. Lots of good information about the cooperative there. They also shared the monthly enrollment report for last month, and they reported that they had a positive outcome from their 5-year compliance review through the DuPage Regional Office of Education. There were a few minor issues, but those have since been resolved. And you may remember that I did comment at our last meeting that they were surveying member districts for available class space. They were trying to better or diversify the locations of programs across their SACID region a little bit better. Unfortunately, they had a very inadequate response. So they had sent out another survey request, and I'm hoping that we're going to get some updated information on that for tomorrow, or at tomorrow's meeting, and I'll share that on Friday with you. Also, the Board of Directors reviewed a proposal from the SACID Education Association, which is the Teachers Association. They're agreeing to extending their current agreement with SACID by 2 years. And the reason is similar to you, they're in the middle of a transition, and rather than bargaining a brand new contract, they did want to get their new executive director on board, and she starts July 1st, and so they extended it by 2 years. They have agreed to a 3.5% increase over step and lane for next year, and then 3.25% increase for the following year, which is FY26. Please note that that is in addition to the lane changes, of course, and then a new schedule. So the total increases for FY25, which is next year, will be 5.46%, and then the following year, fiscal year 26, is a 5.15% increase. And as I said, our next Board of Directors meeting is tomorrow morning. And that is all that I have.
Thank you, John. That brings us to future dates. May 7th is a Committee of the Whole meeting. May 21st is a regular Board of Education meeting. June 4th is a Committee of the Whole meeting, and June 18th is a regular Board of Education meeting. That brings us to board members' open comments.
I will once again request that the Title IX report be released to public and the board members. That's being withheld from board members in its current written form. It was presented verbally, but we haven't received written copies of it, is beyond me. And I'm kind of disgusted by it.
Same comment as Gary made. I was a little disappointed in the March 22nd update about it, referring to our recommending that we wait to make a decision. What is released to the public. That is not waiting to give us a copy of a report as board members that was presented to us, and what closed session meeting, I questioned the validity. That should be provided to us. That sends a very strong message of disrespect and distrust.
I would add that I'm baffled by the fact that the board is not given access to that report with whatever caveats need to be made about continuing to keep it not public, but at least from a board standpoint, having that information available.
Any other open comments? All right, that brings us to future issues.
We're finishing up, I think, our second year of NEN. Is that correct? So I think when we first started talking about NEN, it was sort of a prototype, somewhat experimental program. From what I hear, it's very successful, very well evaluated. I'm wondering if somewhere in the near future, the board needs to take a little bit stronger commitment to DEN so that the staff knows that all the work they're doing isn't going to disappear one day soon because of board changes or whims or anything like that. I think it's as important a program as any of our other curricular programs, and I'd like to see the board discuss moving forward with a stronger commitment to the DEN program.
I'll just, on behalf of the admin team, the support the board's given already, both in the initial launch of it as well as in these almost 2 years of logistical and financial support, have been tremendous. So, and I know that we all greatly appreciate that.
I do want to make sure that we're not in any way overselling everyone's contentment with it, the kids and the teachers. It's not easy. There is the issue of it, being ungraded, and are still really trying to work towards communicating to the students the purpose of it and what we're trying to achieve through it. So there are a lot of positives that are going on, but the issue of being able to find topics and ways to present them that are deeply engaging to the students is still something we're most definitely working on. I think we've made a real commitment towards getting feedback and trying to make changes, but I don't in any way, I think the structure that we have is amazing. I think the teacher leaders have done more than we could have ever imagined, but I just do want to be realistic with you that it is difficult to find a way to do SEL meaningfully at the high school level. So we're giving it everything we have, but that component of it is still very much a work in progress.
Well, I guess it's time for the board to hear the pros and cons and do an evaluation and determine whether we continue with it, make changes to it, or stop it. Because originally the idea was we're going to try it. Okay, so we've been trying it. Do we continue trying it? Do we nail it down? What do we have to do to make it a better program and hopefully keep it ongoing for the benefit of the district?
Mr. Nagel, can I recommend, considering that we're approaching a transition period for leadership for the school district, that maybe Dr. Johansson, maybe in July, sit down with the administrative team and, among other topics, have that as a topic for discussion?
Certainly. I just want to bring up the fact that, when we talked about implementing DEN to begin with, it was kind of a temporary experimental thing. So we need to either decide to move it forward and nail it down, or give it another 2 years of experiment, or end it, I guess. I just want to remind the board that, when we did this, it was open for discussion, for evaluation, and determining to continue on or not.
I will say, I remember the initial time, and Rich, you brought a lot of good institutional memory. The 07-08 similar program really had a lot of challenges and didn't last beyond a year. We are well beyond that initial point. So we've grown well beyond those initial growth scares, and I think everything's been very good. But I don't think you're wrong about talking about the future of it and what does the future of DEN look like, and how do we continue to adjust and evolve to really make sure we're meeting those Tier 1 SEL and other school culture needs that DEN is designed to address.
Any other future issues? All right, hearing none, that brings us to consent agenda. Does anybody wish any items removed from the consent agenda for separate action?
Should we probably remove the minutes since I was not here at that last meeting? Separate that out.
We can certainly do that.
Thank you, Bob.
We remove the personnel action for.
Right, we'll move the personnel action as well. Anything else? All right. And a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the financials as detailed in the agenda, the approval of auditor as far as Baker Tilly to provide auditing services for fiscal year 24 financial report, and to perform the agreed upon procedures for the CLIC audit, and also for the Deos representative to name Kurt Johansson as the board representative for the 2024 to 2025 school year.
Moved.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Mr. Ramus?
Aye.
Ms. Munoz? Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Suniga?
Aye.
Motion carries. To circle back, the recommended motion to approve the minutes from the March 19th, 2024 regular Board of Education meeting, open and closed.
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey Mayer? Mr. Ramus? Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Suniga?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye. Motion carries. The recommended motion is to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, who's second? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ramus?
Abstain.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Suniga?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, there being no old business, that brings us to new business, Healthy West Chicago funding request and memorandum of understanding. The recommended motions that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between Community High School District 94 and Healthy West Chicago as presented and attached.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
So I just wanted to let the board know that Carly Smitherman, who spoke before the board last month, and the administration here, in particular Dan Oberg and myself, worked on the memorandum of understanding. And we believe that it represents both the spirit and the letter of what the board discussed. And thanks to Rich this afternoon, contacted me prior to the board meeting and asked the question, what specifically will the funds be used for? That is, in terms of the services and supplies and so on. So I had a conversation with Carly again this afternoon, and she indicated that the funds will be used for food costs for food-related programs. So those are supplies essentially. Other supplies that programs require, instructors for programs and their travel costs, for example, gasoline at the governmental mileage rate, and for contractors who provide programs. So the funds will be used for that. Carly's salary is paid for by the City of West Chicago, so it won't go towards administrative costs, but it does go towards delivering the programs. I think that may have satisfied your query? Almost, okay.
Any other discussion?
I will approve it, but I would say for the record, I'm a little concerned about approving the donation term in there. I think that sets a bad example. I would rather see something like a non-precedent setting payment in advance of services to be provided. I think by calling it a donation, we're opening ourselves up to other opportunistic groups. So that's just my comment.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ramus? Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Qualified, aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Suniga?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to Summer Food Service Program contract. Recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the Summer Food Service Program contract with Quest Food Management Service, LLC, as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Suniga?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Mr. Ramus?
Aye.
Motion carries. Regarding the next agenda item, I am a school bus driver for a student. Even though I have no connection with management or contracts, I will recuse myself from this next agenda item. Lynn, please take it.
Sure. Thank you, Bob.
The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the contract with First Student as presented.
Moved.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Mr. Ramus?
Aye.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
All right, that brings us to Gym Safety Supports quote. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the estimates from SDM Gym Solutions for the repairs and replacements of safety supports in the field house, Bishop Gym, and Small Gym in the total amount of $19,500 as per noted on each quote.
Moved.
I'll second then.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Mr. Ramus?
Aye.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to insurance renewal. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the medical insurance premium increase of 9.3% to PPO and 8.8% to HMO, as well as the corresponding board premium contributions in accordance with the WCHSTA and WCHSSSA collective bargaining agreements.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Zuniga?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Aye.
Mr. Ramus?
Aye.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Mr. Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Sake?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's all of our business at the moment for open session. We will be going into closed session. There will be action taken after closed session in regards to administrative and confidential personnel compensation. The recommended motion that the Board of Education go into closed session for purposes of the employment, compensation, discipline.
Josh still there? Josh Chambers?
Okay, are we live at this point? Yeah, the red did wake up. Yeah, it's just not. We're still buffering? Okay. All right, we are back in open session. And the last item we have is the fiscal year 2025 administrative and confidential personnel compensation. The recommended motion is the Board of Education approve the FY 2025 administrative and confidential personnel compensation as presented. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ramus?